Good evening, Instagram. So I'm here to tell my story, and it's proving more difficult than I thought to tell my story for lots of different reasons. Time. Lots of people want my attention. It's difficult to even know where to start, where to tell this story. So I guess I'm going to start at the very beginning, and a lot of you know, in fact most of you don't know, that I was born in Australia, and the beginning of my life started with an adoption story. And I'm actually not going to talk about the adoption story at this point because it didn't impact me until I was in my teens, at least. I'm going through a kind of rebellious stage, I guess, and I'll go into that in detail later. But the beginning of my life started in Australia, and I still identify So I definitely identify as being Australian, so much so that I've never even got a British passport. But when I was 5, we moved to Scotland, and life here in Scotland was good enough for me to stay. But it involved lots of travel to lots of different countries, in a good way, to meet lots of different people, lots of new experiences, and I guess it made me really curious about the world. And travel has now become one of my core values, and that has been in me from such an early age. But I would say the early years of my life were pretty straightforward, or at least I thought they were, until I started to make some notes for this story. So I moved to Scotland, started at school, was always known as the Australian girl because obviously at that point I had an Australian accent, and I think that that's one of the reasons that I identified with it. It's kept me unique throughout my life, and people are always really interested in that story. So when I was 8 years old, 3 years after I moved to Scotland, my younger brother was born, and I was no longer the only child. And that was great, really good. I liked the company, I liked not being the centre of attention anymore. And then when I was 12, my parents had another baby, and that baby was stillborn. And I vividly remember the call with that news. I was staying at my best friend's house, and again, I don't think at that moment in time that situation impacted me. And I think the reason for that was that I actually didn't understand it. I remember taking a phone call a few days later from one of my parents' friends, and he came on the phone really excited to hear the news about the new baby, and I very very emotionlessly told him that the baby was stillborn. And I think in reflection that a little bit more think of you showed that I just didn't understand what was going on. Anyway, this situation was a huge situation of medical negligence, and the situation went on for a good few years. We had television cameras in the home. My mum obviously really struggled with the death of the baby, and I think she used all of her energy to fight the case, and that was her way of dealing with the grief, and that's completely understandable. And in hindsight, when did my behaviour change? Well, and I'm going to leave this for the next chapter, but I was a bit of a rebellious teenager, and that's when life really began to get interesting, I guess. I had so many fantastic qualities. I was strong, I was fiercely independent, I was confident. I thought at 12, 13, 14 years old that I knew everything about the world, as most pre-teens and teenagers seem to do. But yeah, up until age 12, there's a lot more that I'd been through than I had ever really reflected upon until now. So that was the start of my life. Chapter 2 is going to be pretty interesting. So stay tuned, give me any feedback. Thank you for listening, guys. I hope that was interesting. I'm sure you'll let me know. Have a good